Hello, 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 and good evening. We are back to another session of Book It, our virtual discussion forum where we have been live for several weeks now, and I am excited. I hope that you have enjoyed our time away as we were going through a week of spiritual revival with our virtual week of prayer. And so we're back on today. What we want to let you know is that we have a mighty guest in the house today. I'm excited because he's my friend, my colleague, and he is now over the publishing ministries in the North American division. And that is none other than Elder Carl McRoy. He is not only a publishing director, but he is a publisher, an author, and I look forward to being with him on today. But before I bring him on, I want to remind you that we have You Can Still Dream. You Can Still Dream by former author that was on our show, Pat Goff. You can go to the website right now. Go to secsda.org /bookit, BOOK-IT, and you can get this book. You can also get from another past author, Pastor Marvin Clark, Your Change, Your Choice. Go get this book. I have a few copies left. If you go, I'll send it to you free. That's right. I have free copies that are still left, and I'm excited about it. And so on next week, yours truly, I will be discussing from the book, The Printed Prophets. You don't want to miss this one. I am going to digress from our normal interview, and I'll be making a presentation about the importance of the publishing work. And so without further ado, I want to bring on our author of today, and that is none other than Elder McRoy. How you doing, sir?
Man, I'm doing better now that I'm on here on Book It with you.
Yes, sir. Man,
thanks for bringing me on, Darwin.
Man, I am so excited to have you. It's my honor, man. I am truly a fan. You know, I figured that, one of the unique things about your ministry is not only as a local pastor in the South Atlantic Conference, but you also serve for the publishing ministries as my colleague for at least over 12 years, if I'm not mistaken, as the publishing director in the South Atlantic Conference. And then you got the call. Where are you now?
So I'm at the office over here in Columbia, Maryland.
Columbia, Maryland. Yes, that is the North American Division publishing department. And one thing that I was just so inspired about you is that you also write books. Not only have you been distributing countless thousands upon thousands of literatures in the South Atlantic territory, but you have also written, at least to my knowledge, 3 particular books, one of which we're going to highlight today, entitled Impediments to Power. Impediments to Power. I'm so excited about this particular book, Impediments to Power, and I've got my copy right here. And so right now, I want the audience to know that I'm going to send you a free copy. This book is phenomenal. Go to the link, secsda.org /bookit, BOOK-IT, and you'll be able to get your order on today. So tell us, what inspired you to write this book entitled Impediments to Power?
Well, so all of my books, including over on the other side here, Yell at God and Live and Are You Tough Enough? They're designed for reaching the masses. All right. So it's good to write to fellow church members, but we need to have a message for the outside as well. And so my goal when I write is for outward facing literature, designing it to be as low as possible in price to make it more accessible to the most people possible. For this one in particular, I was observing the trends of a lot of churches doing prayer outreach. All right. And so you're going out to introduce yourself to the community by praying with people on the streets, in their homes, and so forth. And I said, okay, what can we do to just enrich that a little bit? All right. Not redirect people who are doing that ministry, but to partner with them. And so I thought about this book, and God just kind of gave me the concept for it, keeping the chapters extremely short, making it a short book, something that'll fit in your pocket, something that's easy to share, easy to get through. And with the structure of the book, so that's the purpose of the book, is prayer outreach. That's the top thing. Now, of course, it's good. This will be a good study for inside your church, walking people through, taking them through a series during prayer meeting or something like that. Now, it's not a book about formulas of how to get stuff from God. All right. Sometimes there's books on formulas. Hey, if you do this, you say this, then God will respond in this manner. And this is not about trying to tell God what to do. All right. This is more about how to align ourselves with God's will. And so on the cover, you have the fire hydrant. That's just, the pressure that it's undergoing to release this water is what I envision God sometimes being like. He has a bunch of blessings that he wants to shower us with, but we have something in our lives that's blocking that blessing. That's an impediment that keeps the flow from going. All right. And the number one flow that we need to have is the communication flow with God. All right. So God says, all right, I know you want to talk to me about doing some stuff for you, but here's a few things that I need you to do to clear the atmosphere, to clear the space so that we can have an honest conversation. And so that's what we're talking about, what's blocking your blessings. Not so much things out there in the world blocking our blessings, not even the devil blocking our blessings, but our own mindsets and the own things that we have going on in our individual lives.
So, in your book, I was excited to find out and figure out, okay, hey, listen, I know there's a blessing out there with my name on it. Is there anybody out there listening that wants a blessing? Just go ahead and push like right now, like, bless me indeed. Put that in the comments. Bless me indeed. So what's
increase my territory?
So what is blocking me from being blessed? Here's the first point. Number one that you said in your book, you said removing the impediments, right? You said only when we have admitted we have a problem and our powerlessness to solve them can God actually help us. In most AA programs, admittance is the first step to recovery. For example, they say, we admit we are powerless over blank, blank, blank. Sin, like with alcohol, whether it's drugs, that our lives had become unmanageable. That's step number one. You can substitute the blank you said with anger, criticism, arrogance, procrastination, lust, or alcohol. So the first impediment is the incapacity, right? Impediment of incapacity. Explain that further for us.
All right. So incapacity, basically, you don't have room for blessings.
Okay.
You don't have room for blessings. You're too full of yourself. You're too full of self-ambition, self-sufficiency, self-absorption. It's all about me. Or I believe I can handle it. I got everything under control. As long as I think I have everything under control and I'm not willing to surrender my life to God for him to lead me, well, then he can't really do much for me. All right. He's given us this power of choice, and he said, all right, I'm not going to wire you like a robot. I want you to use what I gave you between your ears. But the first thing you need to do is recognize where you got that from in the first place.
Okay.
Think of it like a sponge. Think of it like a sponge. I mean, sponges, they can absorb twice or three times as much of their size. They can absorb that volume. But there is a type of sponge that can't absorb any liquid. It's a full sponge. All right, that's the only sponge that can't sop anything up, that can't absorb anything because it's full. We see this as a principle throughout Scripture. I don't write about all these examples, but we see about it. We see it in Second Kings with the prophet Elisha. All right, there's a widow who has some hungry children, and they're all about to get put out of their house and everything. And they take their case to the prophet, and the prophet says, listen, I want you to go out and get some empty jars. All right, go to your neighbors, ask them for empty jars.
They were empty.
They don't even know why they're getting the empty jars at first. They just have the instruction, get the empty jars. And so sometimes when we're approaching God and we're asking for the blessing, we can't also prescribe how we're going to get that blessing from him. We say we need a blessing. We're at our wits' end. We have no power to do what it is that we need done in our lives. So we're coming to you. And then God says, all right, since you're giving me control, I want you to do this. And I'm just going to tell you one step at a time what to do.
Okay.
And so the woman has her sons going out to all the neighbors asking for empty jars. Can you imagine the children going from door to door asking for empty jars from their neighbors? Everybody knows they're broke. Why are you asking for empty jars? I mean, they could be up there fussing with their mama. Mama, I don't want to go ask for empty jars. What does that look like? But listen, they're in such an impoverished situation, not just physically and economically, but spiritually, that they're like, no, whatever God says, I'm going for it.
Okay.
We bring back all these empty jars, and then the prophet, then that's when he gives the woman the punchline. All right, you have this jar that only has a little bit of oil in it, but I want you to take that jar and fill up all the empty jars.
So the fact that they had the capacity to be blessed.
Yes, they had the capacity to be blessed. And the blessing stopped flowing when they ran out of empty jars.
When they ran. So our job then, so like in the example in your book, when you said that in the AA, the first step is to admit. So admitting that I've got criticism or I've got pride, or, in the AA example, I've got alcohol addiction. You're admitting that, hey, there's something in my jar, you see, that I need out. And once that is admitted, then you're saying that that blessing is now able to flow?
Well, it's more than just admitting that you have that thing, that issue. It's admitting that you don't have the power to remove it.
Okay.
It's admitting that you don't have the power to get things right.
Oh my God, this is amazing. So listen, I'm just like, okay, God, I'm dealing with this and I don't know how. I'm powerless. You said it here. You said, for example, they say we admit we are powerless over. So the fact that we are powerless, we need God to come in to remove that thing so that the blessing can flow. In this next slide, you said, unless we become sincere about the first step, admitting that we're powerless, then we come to believe that a power greater than ourselves can restore us to sanity. Then you said, make a decision to turn our will, our lives over to the care of God as we understand him. And then finishing that out, fleshing that out. So step one creates the capacity for us to appreciate the rest of the steps that we have to offer. Why trust in a power greater than ourselves if by ourselves we are able to handle all the crazy stuff going on around us and inside of us? Why would we turn our will and life over to God if our little world is running just fine with us on the throne? These decisions only make sense when we've been emptied, like you said, of self-sufficiency.
Right. And so I'm borrowing from, of course, the Alcoholic Anonymous and all the other anonymous groups that there are, and they have these 12-step programs. All right. And the first step there is admitting your powerlessness. Now, there are other steps, and that's like the Christian journey.
Uh-huh.
All right? Now, there are arguments in the Christian community about the validity of 12-step programs and what are the underpinnings of it. But one thing that you can't escape is that you have the same starting point when it comes to your walk with God. You have to admit to him that he's got power, he's got ability, he's got foresight that we don't have. And until we admit that, then there's not much he can do for us.
Exactly.
You know, if he gonna work, then he gonna rest. He just gonna sit back and say, all right, go do your thing.
Yeah, you see, so that's the point. You said the reality is that most people have to hit rock bottom before he'll accept the help he needs. You see, and so I mean, the reality is that, you know, God is not can't give that blessing because something is blocking the incapacity. And until we hit that rock bottom, we say, God, you know, I can't do it no more. I mean, can I be honest? Can I share my testimony? You know, it wasn't until I reached out to the Lord and said, Lord, I cannot beat this drug addiction. You know, before I gave my life to the Lord, I said, God, I need help. God, I'm losing my job. I'm losing my life. I don't know what to do. And it was at that moment where I threw my hands up. I hit rock bottom. That, man, something clicked on the inside of me. I felt delivered at that very moment. You know, and that was a turning point in my life, you know, over 20 plus years ago. You know, I had to hit rock bottom. So, you know, now I feel like I got the capacity, right, you know, to receive the blessings. And hey, listen, the blessings of God has indeed been flowing in my life. You said, you know.
Now let me say something to this point, though.
Sure. Go right ahead.
When we talk about rock bottom, I'm not suggesting that everyone needs to get down and out in the gutter.
Talk to us.
What we're simply saying is that realizing that we've run out of our own resources to do what it is that we're trying to accomplish in life.
Yes,
all right. So now that could be. Now, let's look at the case of Daniel in the Bible.
Okay.
Daniel, we don't see him committing any sin really in the whole book of Daniel. I mean, he's not doing anything. He's not going on any rebellious path. All right. But he learns complete trust in God.
Oh, this is good.
Through different circumstances that he is powerless over. I mean, he's brought into Babylon. He has no power over his conditions and his circumstances. And he's trying to live a godly life in ungodly surroundings.
Okay.
And he realizes, if I'm going to get the victory here, it's only going to be by God's help. So it's not like we have to go stain ourselves in order to see God put bleaching agents at work in our lives. All right. His keeping power is just as powerful as his cleansing power. So listen, if you're out there and you've been raised in the church and you don't have the testimony that you've been strung out on drugs and this and that and the other thing, listen, don't feel like you need to go out and get that testimony in order to realize how much you need God. You need God in order to stay clean just as much as somebody else needs God in order to get clean. Okay. So it's just about that recognition that he is the power source, not me. As long as I see myself as the power source, I don't have room for his power in my life.
Wow. I mean, that's amazing. I love the story of Daniel, you know, as a balance, because Daniel said, hey, listen, nobody is able to tell you, King, what your dream is and what it means except God. And and the testimony of the magicians was, and God doesn't live among men. But I'm so glad that God is in heaven and he looks down and he heard the prayer of his saints. And so anybody right now that's listening to me, you need to know that God does have a blessing. God does have a breakthrough. And as soon as we surrender and acknowledge our helplessness, I believe your blessing is on the way. It's on the way. You know, somebody just type in the comments, it's on the way, because I surrender. I surrender all, right? You know, amazing. So you said you got to have a transplanted heart. So this is the heart that God gives us, a new heart I will put in you. And that's a heart of total surrender, you know, that allows you to receive the blessing. So we're going to move on really quick. The second thing, the impediment to power, is one of ignorance, you know, and you gave the classic example. We can't stay here long, but in Acts 17, you said, in the times of this ignorance, God winked or overlooked, but now commandeth all men everywhere to repent. And then you said sometimes in your impediment check, how do you check whether or not there is a block in your blessing? You know, some people in terms of accountability try to laugh off, try to put off, and try to take it on. Just briefly explain that context in the book of Acts there.
All right. I'll explain it real quickly in book of Acts and try to see if we can bridge to today. All right. So Paul in the book of Acts, he is preaching to some philosophers, various Greek and Roman philosophers, and he's talking to them. He gets to his appeal about Jesus. He starts off with quotes from their own culture and their own poets, their own philosophers, but he makes a bridge over to Jesus and starts talking about judgment and resurrection. And there were some people who were like, oh, wow, yeah, this is what I've really been looking for. There were other people who just laughed. You know, they were like, this guy's crazy. Somebody coming back from the dead after crucifixion? Are you kidding me? There were other people who just put off the decision. Well, we'll think about that and come back to it later on. All right. And we see this at play in our own lives. We see this at play in society. We see now the type of ignorance that God winks at is the ignorance where you don't, it's not that, the type of ignorance that he's talking about is something that you don't know and you haven't had opportunity to know. All right. So you don't know that you don't know.
Yeah.
There's something out here. There's this sphere of knowledge that you're just not even aware of. And God says, I'm not condemning you for that.
Yeah.
All right. But on the other hand, God says, no, you've had opportunity to know this right here. Okay. You've had the written word of God. You've had people preaching to you. You've had living examples of what a life looks like when it's hid in Christ, following in his steps. And still you say, no, I don't want that. All right. 21st century, we got coronavirus. We have a lot of different responses to coronavirus. We got some operate in preferred ignorance to how viruses are spread. No, I don't want to wear a mask. I don't want to. They really don't want to hear what scientists have to say.
Yeah, laughing it off.
Laughing it off, put you to ridicule for wearing a mask, you know, and putting it off until something bad happens to them.
Yeah.
Listen, you got the science. It's the same science that tells you what to do to not spread colds so much.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same science that doctors follow in the operating room. They put on a mask in order to protect your exposed body from the things that they have coming out of their mouth.
Sure.
All right. But we're like, nah, I don't really want to know about that because it might impact how I want to live my life. I really don't want to change anything about what's going on in my life. So I'm going to choose preferred ignorance and want to keep doing things the way I've always been doing them.
So God can't wink at preferred ignorance.
It's preferred ignorance.
Yeah. So how do we unblock this blessing of ignorance? You know, so my blessing is blocked sometimes because I just didn't know. But so how do we do this? How did the people do it? You said in that last one, you got to take it on. You have to immediately decide. You got to confront it. Talk to us about that.
All right. You got to confront it. You got to say, all right, are these the facts? You do your information gathering. You don't have to accept uncritically everything that comes to you. You can't accept everything uncritically that comes to you. You need to have a filter in this brain right here.
Sure.
Right? Need to use it. But once you've gathered everything and you say, wow, you know, there's too much evidence here to just go away like I never encountered it. All right. I can't just leave Paul's preaching and act as if life will be the same. It's a pivotal point in my life. What do I do? What happens if Paul is really right in what he's saying
about this man Jesus?
What do I have to lose if I don't give him a hearing If he is right, what do I have to lose if I don't follow it? If he's wrong, what do I have to lose if I follow it? See, if he's promoting something that leads me to live righteously and justly, and to live a holistic life, to live a happy life, one of generosity and one of graciousness, what have I missed out on? What hasn't my life been enriched? But
Mhm.
now, if I say, nah, I don't want it, and he's right and I'm wrong, and I face that judge one day, the same judge who died and rose again for me, then what am I missing out on? So you have to confront it. You have to confront the issues. And then we have a page of impediment removal tools.
Okay, removal tool. Gotcha.
And so what this does, and this is at the end of every chapter, what we have is some scriptures that apply to that situation. We also have some quotes from other books because, of course, we're colporteurs here, you and I.
Sure.
And what we want to do is whet people's appetites for other things that we carry, like the Desire of Ages and Steps to Christ and Great Controversy. All right. So we have quotes from there to help address the practical situations in our lives.
Listen, I just got to take a quick moment. You want to make sure that right now you go to our website to order this copy. We're not going to be able to finish all this, but I'm going to tell you this book is phenomenal in teaching us on how to remove the impediments that's blocking our blessing. We only have time for one more. There are more in this chapter, and I really want to hit this one. This impediment on blocking your blessing. So a lot of people, they do not receive blessings because I believe it is of inhibition. Okay, so this is the last one we're going to be able to go over. So one of the things that's blocking the blessing that you said is inhibition. This is what you define it as: an inner impediment to free activity, expression, or function. So there's an inner impediment as a mental process imposing restraint upon behavior or another mental process. So essentially, what you're saying is sometimes people can't be blessed because of how they think. Because of how they think. And,
right.
Right now, somebody listen to me. You need to understand that you got to have a renewed mind. You've got to have a renewed spirit. You got to read the word of God so you can know what God says about you and your future, so that stinking thinking won't block the blessing. So tell us, you mentioned here about the story of Caleb and Joshua in possessing the land. Real quick, just explain how the inhibition stopped them from being blessed.
All right. So what Joshua and Caleb's co-workers were doing was they were thinking less of themselves
exactly
than what they needed to. They had a low estimate of themselves. They had this inferiority complex that they projected onto others.
Exactly.
All right. So they viewed themselves as grasshoppers, and then they projected that onto other people and said, other people view us as grasshoppers.
Exactly.
So we view them as giants, but we view ourselves as grasshoppers, and these giants also view us as grasshoppers. Well, the truth is they didn't even have conversation with these people.
Exactly.
All right. They didn't even have conversation that verified that.
Exactly.
They're too afraid to talk to them, to approach them.
Okay, so stop. They had an idea of themselves without gathering the data. So their own inhibition of their mindset blocked their blessing.
Mm-hmm. Right. Wow. And so instead of operating based on the promise of God, God made promises about their destiny.
Yes, he did.
But they delayed their destiny by bypassing, having this mental block with his promise, and they focused on this inferiority complex and projected that onto others. All right. It was something that didn't even exist. All right. Other people didn't view them in that manner. We have the biblical evidence, and the chapter talks about that. So we have the evidence that other people were actually afraid of them, but they were terrified. And here's the thing that is really, sometimes it's just a temperament thing, but it's especially dangerous in our Christian walk, because we will mistake an inferiority complex with humility. And we feel it like our duty to downplay ourselves and to put ourselves down, to negate our positive contributions, and to not seek to live up to our potential, not seek to try to pursue the potential that God has promised for us.
Hey, Pastor McRoy, our time is up, but listen, you said they saw themselves as grasshoppers, so they limited their potential. But in reality, the spies saw the children of Israel in a different way, right? It says when they presented the Israelites with a discouraging report of the land they had investigated, saying, the land that we passed through to devours its inhabitants. All the people we saw there were of great stature, right? But this is what Rahab said. Rahab said, I know the Lord is handing this land over to you. We are absolutely terrified of you and all who live in the land, and are cringing before you. For we heard how the Lord dried up the water of the Red Sea before you when you left Egypt. My God. So the people in the land thought more of Israel than Israel thought of themselves. Give us a final word in terms of removing this mental block, this inhibition impediment from people being blessed. And we're going to go out on that note. What a word.
So what if the Israelites had the same view of their God as the other people did? The inhabitants of Jericho, they had a long memory of what God had already done. They saw God's intervention in Israel. They saw God conquering Egypt in order to liberate his people.
Yes.
Israel was the one who actually experienced the liberation. They experienced the deliverance and they forgot about it, and instead focused on inferiority. And whenever you start delving into that, you just start thinking irrationally. You make a statement that the land devours its own people, and at the same time, the land is growing giants.
Yes, yes, yes.
You see how it just introduces contradictory thinking. How can it both devour its people and provide such sustenance that people grow into giants?
Crazy, right?
That's what that thinking does to you. So what you have to do, first of all, and we have other steps in there, but first of all, just do what the people of Jericho did and look back at what God's already done for you, and take that as a down payment of his promise for your future. If he's done it in the past, why not believe that he's going to do it for your future?
Wow, thank you so much, Elder McRoy. I mean, this is mind-blowing to know that my own thinking is part of the reason why my blessings are being blocked. Well, hey, listen, that is our time. Please go get this book. Trust me, you hadn't even hit the tip of the iceberg. We haven't been able to touch everything. That other impediments that's going to block your blessing. Go order the copy. I'm going to send it to you right away. Thank you again, Elder McRoy, for this awesome time. Be blessed, sir, and stay tuned as we give you a brief update on what's for next week. Next week we have here yours truly. I'll be back next week, and we're going to be dealing with the printed prophets. We're going to be sharing with you in depth what God expects from his people in this hour the published ministry. We have to write the vision, make it plain, so that he who reads it can run. It's time to run, saints of God, in the prophetic. We're looking forward to share that with you on next week. Well, God bless you. This is our time, and we hope that you have a great evening.